Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We're here once again with the High Elves, going to be taking on our cousins the Dark Elves. So let's go ahead and take a look at the army composition. I've got Tyrion here for my lord. As you can see, Tyrion's got the best combat stats of any lord in the game in terms of melee attack and defense. Doesn't have the best armor piercing values, but pretty decent at 220. To help with that, so we've backed him up with this Noble here. Noble's carrying a halberd, so he's got anti-large armor piercing. Not nearly as good of combat stats, but still 100 armor, 78 speed. It is worth noting that Tyrion at 94 speed is one of the fastest heavy cavalry lords in the game. In terms of the rest of the army composition, we've gone with very cheap infantry line of just 3 spearmen. We've got a couple of Lothern Sea Guard with shields out towards the flanks, and in the center 3 units of archers, 2 Dragon Princes for that heavy cav support, and 2 Illyrian Reavers for that ranged mobility. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Dark Elves. They've got 2 Dark Riders with repeater crossbows here, and then a very heavy elite infantry force with 4 Hargoneth Executioners and 2 Blackguard of Naggarond with a Dread Spear. Also got 2 Dark Shards and Malektih on a cold one. Let's go ahead and take a look at his spell loadout. Looks like he's just got Blade Wind and Soul Stealer. I would definitely recommend taking Power of Darkness as well, as it does give you that extra winds of magic. But let's go ahead and pop the battle into full motion, and we'll watch as things unfold. First things first, we're going to be getting a bit of a skirmish phase underway. These Illyrian Reavers have longer range, so obviously I can kind of stay just outside the range here of these Dark Riders and kind of continuously pull away, and they won't be able to return fire very effectively. My idea was I was going to drag them across this kind of huge arc of fire here that my archers have. They did take some damage there, but now wisely pulling away. Once these infantry start to come into range, we're going to need to start focusing various targets down. I mean, obviously my infantry is vastly inferior, so we're going to need to use our heavy cavalry and just the pure volume of fire from these 5 units of archers to take things down here. I'm now just going to hook these Illyrian Reavers into melee mode because they have significantly better melee stats than their Dark Rider counterparts. They're just going to chase these guys to the side of the map and try and get them in melee. You can see we're focusing fire now on this center unit of Blackguard of Naggarond. And although the High Elf Archers don't have the best AP values, they do have solid AP values, and with enough volume of fire, they can still take down a heavily armored unit like these Blackguard of Naggarond. You can see them just dropping left and right. Absolute brutality. We've also started charging out here with the Dragon Princes. Got a nice charge, and the Hargoneth Executioner is going to be pulling away. Likewise, over on this side, we're going to be hooking this guy up and around and getting a charge in these Hargoneth Executioners. This Blackguard is pretty much routed off, just about. I mean, they're combat ineffective more or less at this point. So we're going to change our focus fire to this unit of Hargoneth Executioners here, and you can see just the absolute Daka coming in, just pinning down these Hargoneth Executioners. Here comes the Dragon Prince charge from the side. Going to be connecting with that unit of Hargoneth Executioners. Didn't get the best charge because it was a little bit of an awkward angle, and there were kind of some of these Blackguards soaked in there as well. So we're just going to pull away. But yeah, man, the absolute volume of fire here. You can see we're able to pretty much finish off that Hargoneth Executioner before they're able to get the fight. Soul Stealer coming down here with Malektih. I believe he was actually in here a moment ago. Looks like maybe not quite yet, but Tyrion and the Noble here fighting with these tattered Blackguard, just trying to rout them off. And yeah, we've been able to rout off a couple units of elite infantry here. I'm having to pull away these Dragon Princes because the Hargoneth Executioners are coming after them pretty aggressively. But we've been able to see off the Dark Riders. We're getting into the back line with the Dragon Princes, shutting down these Dark Shards and just laying down an absolute crazy amount of fire with these High Elf Archers here, and just wrecking all these units, as none of them have missile block chance. They're all very elite, high-value units. Now Malektih has joined the mainline engagement despite his Blackguard being routed off. And although Malektih himself would probably be more than a match for Tyrion due to his AP and everything in a one-on-one fight, with the Noble here and with the Spearmen, this is going to start to go very, very south for Malektih. You can see a classic battle, him dueling with Tyrion here. But we've also got the Noble throwing in his little halberd swipes from the side. A nice Blade Wind going down there, cut through some of those archers, but a little bit too little too late at this point, as most of the Dark Elf forces have taken a lot of damage. We brought in a nice Alexander Elf rear charge here. With these Dragon Princes, just going to be trying to finish off this pocket, and you can see the leadership's rapidly dropping here. As Malektih's health goes down more and more, the leadership of the Dark Elves is going to start to drop more and more. We did get one Hargadeth Executioner that broke through the lines on this side, but again, we just get all these units here that are secure and start firing into this one, and that's going to be game. So, a nice short replay on that one. We'll go ahead and take a look at one more just because that one was relatively quick, but just goes to show the concept of volume of fire. I mean, with 5 skirmisher units plus 2 skirmish cav, you can lay down a ridiculous volume of fire. And with the high elf missiles, they might not have the best AP values, but with this much volume of fire, you can definitely get some work done. The Dragon Prince has also got some solid work done, helping to deal with those Hargadeth Executioners. You can see nothing in my opponent's army got XP chevrons. These Dread Spears had theirs to begin with, but yeah, Tyrion and the Noble were able to deal with Malektih, and the Archers were able to deal with several groups of the elite infantry while they advanced. And I think this is going to be the main problem you're going to run into with Dark Elves versus High Elves. Dark Elves, I think, are one of the best factions in the game, but they're also very tricky to use in certain situations. The High Elves are one of those interesting ones where they have a lot of bad matchups, but some of their best matchups are against the other tier 1 factions, which is why you'll still see them in tournament play, like against the Wood Elves and the Dark Elves, for example. I would say the High Elves hold the advantage in both of those matchups due to their superior range. They have really cost-effective spearmen. These guys may not get a lot of killing done, but 50 melee defense for a 500-point unit is awesome. And the Dragon Princes, of course, are absolutely monsters. Same with the Illyrian Reavers. I'm a huge fan of these guys, growing more and more to be one of my favorite skirmish cav. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into another replay here. And this time, we're going to be taking my Chaos up against a High Elf player. And this time my opponent went with a very heavy mobile build with 2 units of Ithilmar Chariots and a unit of Silver Helms. He's got a Phoenix, 1 unit of Illyrian Reavers, and his infantry is 1 Swordmaster, 1 Spearman, and 1 Phoenix Guard with an Archer. He's got a Princess up on an Eagle, interestingly enough, and also a Mage with the Lore of Light. For myself, I've got 4 Marauders, 2 Chosen, 4 Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, 1 Poison Warhound with a Dragon Ogre, Kolek Sun Eater is the Lord, and a Shadow Sorcerer. He's carrying the standard loadout of what you guys have seen me take before, Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, Penumbral Pendulum, and the Enfeebling Foe. So, we'll go ahead and jump into this battle here. A little bit of an interesting build for my opponent. Some units you don't get to see too often. We'll kind of talk about them in a little bit more depth here. Let's see. The Grey Eagle mount for the Princess is an interesting option as it makes her incredibly fast. 110 speed means that she'll be able to stay out in front of any Chaos flying unit, so it's a relatively safe pick. If you want your Lord to be safe, this is probably one of the safest options. You do still need to be on top of your micro in order to stay out in front, but yeah, protecting with the Flamespire Phoenix, which is a decent monster. It's not great, doesn't have the best combat stats. It's alright for a big monster, but it can definitely do some damage, and it's fast enough to keep up with the Princess and kind of help her out in that situation. You can see we're bringing the Marauder Horsemen up and around to start harassing. Since my opponent's got such a small infantry line, we can start kind of pitching our throwing axes into these Phoenix Guard here. And the Ithilmar Chariots, because I don't have too much mobility here, are thinking that it's going to be relatively safe. But, man, they're coming into the wrong neighborhood. Big Papa Kolek's coming with the hammer out. Going to be laying a smackdown on these chariots, and once he hits his charge speed, he is going to be fast enough to keep up with them. Regularly, they're 78 speed, whereas Kolek is also 78 speed, so they're about the same speed. We do have the Poison Warhounds on station as well, so very, very risky for my opponent. You can see, though, he is diving in the front line with that Phoenix, I guess trying to get a quick terror route. But I'm just kind of folding my infantry line back because I don't want to take this engagement head on before I can maybe take off some of these units here. Very nicely played here from my opponent, netting down these Marauder Horsemen. And honestly, these High Elves, these Archers have light armor. I was wondering why they weren't taking quite as much damage. They are still going to take some damage here, but High Elf Archers have reasonable combat stats, especially the 30 melee defense while that Martial Prowess is active. So they weren't taking as much damage as I would have liked. That being said, we're kind of, again, just retreating across all fronts, trying to force piecemeal engagements. We've been able to deal with both units of Ithilmar chariots here relatively easily, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of the Ithilmar chariots. They don't have AP. They're not as fast as the Tyrion chariots. They're more expensive. They do have more armor, but they don't have a missile attack. I do believe they have higher charge bonus. We can compare the stats directly at the end of the game. But honestly, I'm just not a fan of the Ithilmar chariots. I just feel like rarely are they ever cost effective. I mean, the Tyrion chariots, just because of their ranged attack and other attributes, are a lot more utilitarian in my opinion. But you can see here we've got this Chosen fixing these Marauders fixing these guys in place. The Chosen are going to come in on the side and just start to work these Phoenix Guard down. You can see they're coming in with their heavy metal axes, going to be chopping away. The Phoenix does come down here to try and interrupt a little bit. It does armor piercing, so it'll do a little bit against the Chosen here. The issue with the Eagles and the Phoenix type units is they just don't have that much splash attack area. So they don't end up doing that much damage to clumps of infantry at the end of the day. Very nice pendulum sighting straight through those Phoenix Guard there. This Swordmaster I don't really have a great answer for, so I'm just kind of letting this Marauder kind of get massacred by it for the moment, since this Chosen got interrupted by this Ithilmar chariot. And man, those Chosen have such a crazy amount of weapon strength and combat stats. They just wrecked those Ithilmar chariots that charged into them, no problem. We've got the Dragon Ogres and the Poison Warhounds finishing off those Silver Helms. Kolek's coming back over to the battle to try and deal with that stupid Fire Chicken. Not too many Flaming Phoenix Feces have been dropped so far. Let's go ahead and take a look at the total. Only 17 kills for the Flamespire Phoenix. Yeah, I'm honestly not the biggest fan of these guys. You can see the Chosen rapidly racking up experience. Here comes Kolek. Nice Lord of the Storm, just interrupting all the views for everyone. And yeah, Kolek's going to be bringing the hammer down on that Fire Chicken. And that'll be pretty much game at that point. I mean, there's still a little bit of time left on the balance. But with the Fire Chicken down, did not get the reanimation proc, unfortunately. We've got a Melkos Mystifying Miasma on these Phoenix Guard who are now terrified. It's worth noting Phoenix Guard, although they do cause fear, are not immune to psychology, so they can be terrified. Over here, my opponent trying to clean up this isolated unit of Marauder. That's a good job. We've been able to catch his Light Wizard here with a few of these Marauder Horsemen, which means that she's going to be continuously knocked around and not able to cast many of her spells. I think that my opponent probably should have just had this Princess stuck on Kolek the whole time rather than shooting into Marauders and so on. I mean, she's been able to get 13 kills, but at this point, the Desperation Charge coming in, trying to keep Kolek off of these archers here, but it's just going to be too little too late. And man, once Kolek turns around and starts bringing the hammer down on this little pigeon here, it's going to be a bad time. So I don't know if my opponent was just trying something new, or if he even may have just random genned his army. I mean, it was a solid army in terms of the composition. He had, you know, a mage and everything, so I'm not really sure. He may have just auto-genned it, but in any event, it did give me an opportunity to show off why I don't really like the Ithilmar chariots. You guys have heard me say before that I'm not really a fan, and I know I've seen comments asking me about comparing it to the Ithilmar chariot, or sorry, the Tyrion chariot, but honestly, I just feel like because of the lack of the missile attack, the slower speed, the more expensive cost, the Ithilmar chariots just rarely are cost effective, I've found. Not really too much to talk about on the army breakdown there, but if we go ahead and just take a look briefly here at the High Elves in the post-battle screen, then talk about a few things that we learned from those battles. Let's go ahead and take a look. So, archers, High Elf archers have 180 range, which is absolutely incredible. They have decent AP values at 3, so I mean, if you have enough volume of fire, you know, something like this is 5 units of archers. Just going to be dishing out an insane volume of fire. You can definitely whittle down elite tier infantry very quickly and from a long range. So if we go ahead and then also take a look at the chariots here, we'll grab some Tyrion chariots and some Ithilmar chariots. So you can see the Ithilmar chariot has more health, more armor, better leadership. However, the Tyrion chariot is a little bit faster. Actually, 6 speed, it may not seem like much, but that's enough to make a bit of a difference. Has better combat stats, which I mean, who cares on a chariot. Slightly better weapon strength with 16 AP and 24 bonus versus infantry. We've got an 18 bonus versus infantry here and 11 AP for the Tyrion chariot. So it does have more AP, but it's still not an AP focused chariot. It does have a 70 charge bonus, which is, you know, more than the 55 of the Tyrion chariot. But still, you're losing that missile attack, which does magic damage. They can fire in 360, has a decent range at 165, and fires a multi-shot. It's very, very powerful. The other thing, too, is you compare the Athilmar chariot to, for example, the Orc Boar chariot, which is in a similar cost bracket. 1,000 for the Orc Boar chariot. It has armor piercing, 90 armor, 80 charge bonus, which is even better. I mean, of course, the Athilmar chariot is going to be better in most other respects, but still, that armor piercing counts for a lot. We can also take a look at the Dark Elves here. And the Lizard Limo, of course, has an AP missile attack. It has AP in melee. Armor is comparable. Of course, the Athilmar chariot holds the advantage in stats and the rest. But most of the time, that's not really going to matter too much. I mean, combat stats don't really matter. Speed does matter. 78 speed on the Athilmar chariots is pretty decent. But at the end of the day, not having AP on these guys is really, really bad. I know there was at one point a chariot for the High Elves in the tabletop that had like some lions carrying it. I'm really hoping we see that get added in at some point as a like AP chariot option for the High Elves. But until then, I would definitely recommend, if you are going to bring chariots, just stick to the Tyrion chariots, as they are generally more cost effective. So hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.